going on, guys? Welcome back to Network Chuck. Got someone here, got a different setting for the live stream. This is my brother, Cameron. Say hello, brother Cameron.
How you doing, guys?
They're not going to respond. Actually, they can in the chat. Yeah, go ahead and say hi, people.
Yep, say hi.
So I brought Cameron on today. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you've probably seen or heard of Cameron. He got his A+ after I told him, hey, skip the whole college thing. College is stupid. So we did not go to college, no degrees. There's not a degree in this room right now.
Nope.
You got your A+, then you got your CCNA, got on the help desk, became a network engineer, dealt a lot with wireless, and you decided that you hated that and started working towards becoming a cloud engineer.
Exactly.
And how long have you been a cloud engineer now? It's been like a month or so?
I'm still not even fully a cloud engineer. It's technically my title, but still.
Well, then we got to change the title of this dang video.
It's technically my title, but I'm like a hybrid engineer at the moment. Still waiting for my wireless replacement because of the whole COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, well, so that's interesting.
Very interesting.
But, you know, for the sake of this video, we're going to call you a cloud engineer.
For the sake of the video, and realistically, I am still a cloud engineer, but I also am still a network engineer as well. So.
Yeah. Okay, so you do, and we'll touch on that because I think you never stop being a network engineer.
That's true.
Because all that stuff is just up there. So tell me, what did you start with? So when you decided you want to become a cloud engineer, what did you do?
I noticed the team that we had at our company.
I guess first, like, you had to decide, like, was there even a path for you? And that's what I would tell people, like, if you want to become a cloud engineer, you got to figure out, do you even have an avenue, a way to get to that point? So yeah, kind of touch on that because you had a cool way of doing that.
Yeah, I was just sitting there one day and I thought, you know what? My company seems to be pretty focused on the cloud. That seems pretty interesting. I kind of want to know more about it. So I actually, during our lunchtime, we have like a open cafe you can go sit at, and I saw one of the cloud engineers, and he was pretty new, just like I was at the time, to the company. So I went over and sat with him and said, hey, what could I do to become a cloud engineer? Like, what's the path to do that? And he just told me what certifications I should look for. Our company actually provided training for it, so he told me to go reach out to the manager of the cloud team, and he would actually provide training to do or for cloud. So I went ahead and did that, and that just kind of started the whole process. Took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but it all ended up working out.
Well, yeah, I think it's important to note that while a lot of people think, okay, I need to start with my certifications, I think the first thing you should start with, and it's what you did, is figuring out, okay, how can I even get into that cloud position? Because we all know that getting a certification doesn't always mean, hey, you get a job. That doesn't equal that. So he made sure he had a path. There was actually a path, and he made sure also what was required. He made sure what they were looking for.
I spent a lot of time bugging all of them, asking them, if I wanted to be someone that's on your team, what are the things that I need to know in order to get there? And one of the first things they said that I just knew was like, it's going to take a while, is coding. One of the first things they said, and they just started naming off several languages. And I was like, okay, hold on, I'll just start with Python. So I started with Python.
Wait, so they want you to know more than one language? On the cloud team.
Yeah, they mentioned Bash.
Which I guess could be, is kind of but it's more of like Cisco CLI for Linux, right? It
is, but
it's a lot more intense though.
It's intense.
Yeah, you got Bash scripting, which is crazy.
That's what they wanted you to know. Bash scripting. They wanted you to learn Python. They said even learning Ruby could help, and just knowing like JSON, some XML, knowing all that kind of stuff is pretty important. Even if you're just working with Python. Even just working with like APIs and stuff, you should probably know the basic format of JSON. So when you're using Python and that kind of stuff to organize things you get from REST APIs. But
so let's go back to when you decided to go Azure or AWS, because that's the two big cloud players. I get the question all the time. I'm Team Azure. I love Azure. I have an Azure course below. But how did you make that decision?
The company I was at was very hardcore AWS, and I could have definitely saw that it was way harder to try and get an AWS job or any type of cloud job out of the company I was already in. So I thought it would be a lot easier for me to just settle in on the company that I'm at and go with the cloud provider they have. And that's what I decided to do, is just go for the AWS certs.
Which is smart. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, okay, they're like, what should I do, Azure, AWS? I can't tell you the definitive answer. You just have to go look at the available jobs, or even better, the company you're at. What do they use? That's going to be your best bet, because it's not impossible to find a cloud job just getting a cloud certification, but it's hard unless you go the easier route and figure out, okay, what's my company using? And that's what Cameron did here. So you chose AWS, and what was your first AWS certification? Did you go for the practitioner?
No, that was one thing I had spoken to with the cloud engineer. I was kind of like using as like a mentor type thing. I was asking him all the questions, what I should do. And I asked him if it was even worth my time, because I started doing a little bit of the course for the Certified Cloud Practitioner for AWS. And I was like, this seems too easy. So I went and asked him, and he goes, yeah, I skipped that one. You could just, for honestly, you have a good amount of experience just kind of with IT in general. You could skip to the solutions architect. So that's what I decided to do. It was a little more difficult, but I think it was worth my time to just study a little bit harder and get it all at once, rather than doing the practitioner and then going to the architect associate.
And I get that question a lot, because AWS and Azure both have their beginner level certs. It's the practitioner for AWS, and then it's the, I created it. It's AZ900 is what it's called. What is it? What's the actual nomenclature for? I don't know. It's the AZ900. That's their beginning. So you would say that for someone who maybe doesn't have any IT experience, or maybe just maybe a year of help desk and they're still just getting started, would you say they should probably go for the beginner level certs for cloud, or should they just jump right to, is it like every situation, or what situation should you do that for?
I think that if you're just wanting to start into the cloud, maybe you don't know if you really want to do it or not. Maybe you're still kind of on the fence of whether it's something that you think you'd want to do. I would recommend going through it. I would do the course at least if you're really having the contemplation, but you may not necessarily have to go for the actual cert itself, because you may figure out that it might be a little too easy. But the people that I've seen who have gotten the cloud practitioner on a practical level have been people who are maybe management. Like, they want everyone at our company to almost have a practitioner cert, to basically just to be cloud literate, to basically understand if you're in a meeting talking about concepts, they want you to know what is EC2, what is S3, what's a VPC. They want you to be able to understand those types of concepts, but not necessarily have to work with it on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, and that's a good point, because I think maybe you don't want to go the cloud route. That could be the thing. But if you're on the help desk, you're on the network team, I think it's going to help you out a lot if you just know a little bit about the cloud, because more often it's probably going to be the case that your company is going to start looking at cloud, especially now. So knowing just a little bit about it is going to serve you well. So you chose to go directly to the AWS certified
Solutions Architect Associate.
They have I hate that. I hate it so much.
It sounds cool.
No, it does not. It just sounds like a lot of stuff. So you went that route. In the exam, we kind of talked about that when you passed it, but it was a difficult exam.
It was difficult. A lot of reading. Very, very, very long, wordy questions. So you have to take your time, read all the way through it. It's one of those exams where they can give you 4 right answers, but only one is the most efficient and cost the least. So
a lot of gotcha questions, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of, you have to know your stuff. You have to know what is the cheapest, what is the thing that a real architect would choose, and not just something that someone Googled real quick and figured out, I could mash all this together and it costs like $1,000 a week. They want you to have the most efficient thing possible.
And that's killer, because that's one of the huge benefits of the cloud, and also can be one of the biggest detriments of the cloud is you can save money, but also if you don't have the right infrastructure moving to the cloud, it can cost you a ton of money. So it's never like a cloud's good for everyone situation. I had a question I was going to ask you. Okay, so you went the AWS, the architect, a solutions architect associate route. That didn't guarantee you a job.
No.
From the get-go. And I think what's surprising is that with networking, right? If you get your CCNA, in a lot of cases, you know enough to get started on the network team. And even further, if you go CCNP, you'll be even better to get started on the network team. But I think the cloud's a bit different. The certification itself doesn't exactly give you all the skills to become a cloud tech. Exactly. Would you agree with that?
100%. Because that's how I thought about it, because of my experience with the CCNA.
Yeah, which is what I love the CCNA, because it's all inclusive. This is not the case.
Right. So I got my CCNA and went almost straight into a networking job and thought, man, this is great. Then whenever the cloud came up, I was like, let's do it again. So I got it. Then I was kind of like, all right, let's wait for the doors to open. And then nothing happened. I even went for a position at the company. I didn't get it the first time. And that was because of the lack of certain things I didn't have, which was coding, Linux, Windows systems administration. So
Which is so funny. You wouldn't think that you'd have to get that skill, right?
Right.
But
it's all that kind of stuff goes hand in hand because you at some point have to deal with it. You're just dealing with most of that stuff. All those services that are usually bundled all on-prem is being just used in the cloud. So just being an architect and you think you're only going to touch AWS services, you're wrong. You're going to be touching a lot of coding, a lot of serverless, a lot of there's so much stuff. I'm still learning it. There's still so much stuff you can do.
And we'll get into how your experience has been when you first started, I guess, technically on the cloud team. And by the way, guys, we'll be doing a kind of a Q&A after we do our spiel here. So hang around, get your questions ready, and we'll answer whatever you ask, whether it's cloud related or not. So you got your AWS whatever certification, and you got rejected basically by your team. And I remember you did something kind of cool. You basically told your manager and the manager of the cloud team, okay, what do I need to do this, and what do they do for you?
So I spoke with my actual manager once, but really the big thing of it was keeping the accountability with the manager of the other team and showing them that I was still, like, even if I look like I'm still not as shiny as other candidates, that if I'm showing that I'm learning and improving, that maybe I'll look a little bit better whenever another position comes around.
Okay. Well, yeah, 'cause that's a good point, because I mean, they could, I'm sure they get resumes all the time with
Of course.
people who have been using AWS for 10 years or whatever.
Right.
So why should they choose you, who's very fresh, very green, no coding skills, very limited Linux skills? So you had to kind of make yourself different.
Right.
And I remember you mentioning that they kind of gave you a plan, right? Like a plan you had to meet, like kind of a few steps. And if you met those steps, then they would green light you. Wasn't that the case?
It was so I had like I think you're mentioning like the transition plan that I had, but
maybe.
But I did try my best to get from them a roadmap of like things that I could actually check off and kind of get slightly proficient at, get the building blocks, get the foundation built for those things so that I can improve on them later.
Okay.
But that still took some time.
Yeah. So I think that the point I want to hit home the hardest right now, and it's been true for me, it's been true for Cameron, is that when you get that cloud certification, it doesn't guarantee you a job, and it doesn't guarantee anyone that you know how to do the job of a cloud tech. Like you can log in and you can definitely spin up some stuff from virtual machines. You can mess with Docker. You can do things, but you can't really administer a huge infrastructure because a lot of it's more DevOpsy.
That's something that was very surprising to me whenever I first started. Like, they threw a couple little projects at me. They were like, we want to see if you could do maybe something like this for your team, like put up like an application in the cloud. And I did that a couple of times. And the first thing that hit me was, all right, I'm ready to stand up this instance. Let's do it. They go, but wait, hold on. Where's your CloudFormation template? And I was like, you want to create a CloudFormation template?
Which, if you don't know what that is, it's like it's just a template for creating things in AWS, right? So if you
it's like
it's like a recipe that you just kind of throw at it.
Yeah, you have to get a whole document, and then you have to basically detail everything in JSON. Instead of going in and clicking all the buttons and installing it, you have to give them basically just a long JSON formatted thing of text, give it to them, and then it deploys what you need. So that was interesting because I had to go through all that. And then one more thing about it is every cloud team is going to have something different. That everyone is so DevOpsy that they're all going to have all these custom tools. So you have to learn how to use all their custom tools too.
And I think that's what people it's what they first love about networking, is that while networking is complicated and it does take a lot of skill to learn it, we all pretty much use, for the most part, some of the same tools.
Right.
I mean, everyone uses PuTTY, and if you don't use PuTTY, you graduate to Secure CRT, and we all know the CLI, but man, when you get to, and then the SolarWinds and Prime Infrastructure, like there's only a few options, but you get to DevOps, there's like 1,000,001 tools, Jenkins and Puppet, and like all these different, you can do it in a million different ways, and I think that stresses me out.
Yeah, it's... Yeah.
He's starting to sweat as I'm saying all those words. I can see it in his eyes.
It's a lot of everything.
Twitch. So I guess I want to help our people watching. So for someone who wants to go into the cloud, definitely get your certification. Would you agree with that?
Yes, of course.
And then once you have that certification, what would you recommend they do first after that?
I would think, because I mean, you can go and learn Chef, you can go and learn Jenkins, but I think the biggest thing you could do is try just to learn the basics of, let's say, Windows administration, Linux, and Python. You learn those three things, and I think that could take you a long way if you just get a good foundation in all of those. Linux, super important. Linux is used very heavily in cloud environments. More than I would say Windows is.
And haven't I been telling you guys? You joke about me telling you to learn everything, but this is where we're at.
Yeah, learn
Linux, Python, cloud, learn it all, and networking, and system administration.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because it seems like IT has gone through phases where it used to be that you kind of had to be the jack of all trades, and then it became more popular to become more siloed and learn one skill really well. But now with the cloud kind of converging everything, you have to be a jack of all trades again.
Yeah, you do.
To administer that.
And that's something that's very heavily focused on the team that I'm on, is that they want everybody to be interchangeable. They want everybody, if you learn something new, they want you to document it, they want you to share it with everybody. They don't want any type of siloing. Because in networking, you usually have people that are firewall, wireless, dedicated network. But on the cloud team that I'm on, and I would assume that's most teams, they want everybody to be interchangeable and not be a specialist. You might be better at some things, but if you're that good at it, they want you to share your knowledge.
Man, and that's intense. Which part of me is like, that sounds, especially if you're new and you're just getting your hands and your grasp on what the cloud is. That sounds super scary and intimidating, and you may not even understand the scope of what you're even talking about. Because like that's you're talking about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also exciting because your job will never be boring.
No, it's
ever.
not.
You will have the most exciting job. And I want to touch on that real quick. I know you're still new, but you were doing networking for a while, and now you're into this. What's the main difference between doing networking and doing cloud stuff? Or is there much of a difference? How has your day-to-day changed? And do you like it?
I do like it. I feel like knowing that everything is up in the cloud is almost relieving, because you know that if you typed in one wrong command on a network device and you didn't have some backup set up, you would just completely lose connectivity to the device and have to go to it physically.
Yeah, and depending on where that sucker is.
Yeah. So knowing that alone puts me a little bit at ease every day, knowing that everything that I could possibly touch isn't going to go anywhere.
That's true. And the cloud has so much DR built in, so much redundancy. Yeah. That is reassuring. And you're not living off your own infrastructure, your own power. All those variables are gone. Microsoft or Amazon handles that.
And even if I screw something up too bad, they're on the back end to help.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I assume you guys have a big support contract through AWS. And I had a question. I guess we can go ahead and answer it. Someone asked, do you recommend learning multi-cloud situations? And you're hitting that now, because we used to argue back and forth, Azure, AWS, Azure, we would kid around, but now you're hitting both.
Mm-hmm. We actually have more than two, actually, at the moment. Not one that we actually aren't going to manage, but it's still another big cloud provider. But yeah, our company is leveraging Azure and AWS. So it is definitely good to learn. If you can, learn all of it. Why not? You can be interchangeable. Maybe somebody wants to pay you more to do Google than they want to pay to do AWS or Azure. So it's good to learn all of it.
Yeah, and have you started doing a lot of Azure just yet?
No, I'm still just trying to
AWS
get the handle on AWS, and then we can start talking about Azure.
Well, I'm more of the Azure camp, but I have dabbled in the AWS stuff, and I can say that a lot of the terms are the same, or not the same. They have different names, but they do the same things. So the concepts, the theory it's kind of like going from Cisco to Juniper. They're standards, and they really haven't gone away from that. And also, it's really not a huge learning curve from what I've seen. So you should be okay. So I'm excited to see you learn Azure, because Azure's fun. I
bet it will be.
I prefer Azure. I've dealt with, and that just might be because it's my first love. It's my first love. But we'll see how that goes. So what's your strategy for learning Azure? Are you going to go for the certification and go from there?
We'll see. I probably will. Just to have it on the resume, I'll probably end up going for I'll probably skip what was the AZ900? Probably go for the 103, which I think it's expiring soon.
Yeah, so
probably by the time I go for it, I'll be going for the new version.
So shameless plug. AZ103 was the course I worked on with Knox Hutchinson at CBT Nuggets. We recently updated that sucker. It's now fully AZ104. I'm still on there talking about stuff, and Knox updated some courses or some things on there, so it's fully ready to go. Link below. And also, Bart, another CBT Nugget trainer, recently released the new Azure, AWS Solutions.
Certified Solutions Architect Associate.
Thank you, Cameron. We have that training, so check that out below. So one thing I wanted to mention about the multi-cloud thing is that the reason multi-cloud is so hot right now, is that you can have your like Docker containers. The beauty of Docker containers is they're so stinking portable, and you can have your infrastructure living in both clouds, talking to each other and existing easily. You can easily shift your infrastructure from AWS to Azure without even thinking about it, and that's a beautiful thing.
It's powerful.
It's awesome because you're not. I can't tell you how frustrating it was at times for me where we would have infrastructure in a data center, and then our data center would lose internet connection, or our building would lose, and just whatever. We thought we had redundancy, but we really didn't, and we had to find a solution like really fast, and that was so stressful. But like with the cloud, it has that stuff built in.
Right.
And if one cloud sucks, there's options. Like you go anywhere else.
And then they just have limitless availability.
Yeah.
And it's all just how you want to do it. They have so many different regions that you can have everything in.
Although I will say this though, and I didn't tell you this before, I built some labs in Azure, and I had templates. We call them ARM templates in Azure, and I had these templates built out that people could deploy their lab and have fun with it. My templates broke because the coronavirus. Azure is actually limiting to what images they can use in the cloud.
Oh wow!
So they're limiting what regions you can use for the. So it's only the free tier. It's only the free tier. But they're limiting what size virtual machines you can use and what regions. So it completely broke my labs. I had to go and fix it. But they're fixed now. They're fixed. But that was super frustrating. I'm like, why isn't this working? And I had to like Google what it was. But so limitless, yes. But I mean, there is always a limit. But they're always expanding.
Constantly expanding that limit.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. So where do you? I know you've been. So how? Let's just tackle this. How have you learned Linux and Python? What have been your resources?
Python, I'm still using Codecademy Pro. That's probably the best one that I've used so far. And
how far are you now?
I'm probably like 55%.
I'm at 56.
And
it's tough, isn't it? Those projects are ridiculous.
And that is no plug. I actually pay for it.
Yeah, I pay for it.
It's not cheap, so yeah, I pay for it.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
Worth it for sure. It's definitely really good. My company actually provides A Cloud Guru. I use them for my.
Boo.
Who
said that?
I use them for my Solutions Architect Associate, and then one of the recommended trainings that I was told to use was the Red Hat Certified Associate. I think is what the certification is.
It's Red Hat's like Amazon. It's like RHEL, ABCDFG. Like I forget what it is.
I think it was the RHCSA.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. I'm thinking the additions of our Red Hat.
Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Yeah, it's like RHCSA, AAA 4.3. I don't know what it is, but that's what I've been thinking about going for too. Oof. After Linux Plus, which I keep saying I'm going to do.
When he goes for it.
Yeah, shut up. Why not Linux Plus? You should go for that.
I mean, I might. It may not be worth my time to actually go for the full certification. It may just be worth my time to get more real life experience with Linux than to actually go for a certification for it.
I guess that's true. Because you've already got the job, right? Like you're not trying to prove yourself. You don't need the certification. You just need the skills.
Right.
But again, CompTIA is one of the only few that I think, as of tomorrow, will have online testing.
AWS is about to do it too.
Oh yeah, that's true. And then Azure already has it. So that's cloud sucker. I love it.
Yeah. I wish I could have taken mine at home. I hate going to testing centers.
You guys have heard me say this. That was the single best experience I've ever had with testing in my entire life. We're doing it from my office, at my house, and it was the best exam I've ever had. So fun. It sounds way more fun than your AWS exam. There was no tricky theory. Oh look, we got an AWS employee here. Thank you, Cajoling Technologies, for the super chat. He said great stuff. Well, thank you for stopping by. I'm sure you got stories. Let's see if we have any super chats that we missed. Just a lot of chats we missed. So guys, we're gonna go ahead and do some question and answer unless we think of something else to say. And right now is the time to ask questions. So here's one. Did he say Code Academy Plus or Code Academy Pro?
Code Academy Pro or Code Academy.
Yeah,
Pro.
so it's tricky. It's not Code Academy. It's Code Academy. Yeah. I feel like they made a mistake, and I just kind of went with it.
Yeah,
it's
like someone spelled it wrong and just decided to go with it.
Yeah. Oh, you want to go back from my microphone? Okay, I will do that. And you go closer.
Oh, me go closer?
I think I'm louder than you are. Thanks, Abdul, for letting me know. So let's go back. Let's go back and find some questions here. Let me know if you see any that I'm just kind of. Which Linux platform? Oh, so that's a good question. So which Linux distribution should you learn for cloud stuff?
I think Red Hat for sure. I think from what I've seen, Ubuntu and stuff.
They're going to beat you over the head. It's Ubuntu.
I don't care what you think. But I think Red Hat is definitely the dominating force from what I've seen.
Because it's Linux with support.
And then I think even Amazon has their own machine images dedicated that are built onto Red Hat as well. But I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they're built on the same platform. But yeah, I think Red Hat, if you're going for more of an enterprise level job, definitely learn Red Hat.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too. I think even with a lot of the even for like Linux Plus, a lot of the books you'll find that get you to learn it, they say study CentOS, which is just free Red Hat. Mm-hmm. Because they have to make it free because Linux is open source, which is cool. When you go Red Hat, it's just it's not free. It's the enterprise. They give you support contracts and everything with it. But yeah, Red Hat's everywhere, especially with Cisco stuff like Cisco Collaboration, I believe all the Firepower stuff, all the cloud stuff that are virtual machine based, all underlying.
A lot of stuff built on
all Red
Linux.
Hat. All Red Hat. So a lot of people saying that Linux is crucial. What
about security cloud? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of money in cloud security. Like if you were to go for the AWS security specialty, yeah, you'll be set for a while.
Yeah, so that's the other this. I'm trying to wrap my head around this because it's such a big world. Because I know you were expressing interest in going for the advanced networking specialty for AWS, but now I have a feeling you're probably going to put that on hold for a bit because there's so much you got to fill in between, so many cracks that you're missing.
Right.
So do you plan on going down any other certification paths in AWS, or are you going to just try and build up your coding and Linux skills?
I'm going to kind of see where the need for it is on the team that I'm on. And I'll adapt to what I'm going to go for what they need. So
Smart.
So if they're needing something more heavily in the developer side, I might go for a developer track, the DevOps track, or I might go for one of their specialties. They're constantly releasing new specialties. If someone's watching this later, they'll probably have like 5 new specialties. But and
they probably rev the exam like 4 more times.
Yeah. And another reason why I'm definitely putting off the advanced networking specialty is I think it still needs an update. Because they've added a whole big new change to AWS networking with their transit gateway. And my company actually uses that, so that's something that I need to learn more heavy than just a lot of their regular networking concepts. So if they were to update their test to include more of that, I'd probably go for it more heavily. But I'm going to wait for probably the next iteration of the advanced networking specialty before I go for it.
Which I imagine they'll probably be revving that soon.
Transit gateway is still pretty new. I don't think a lot of people have deployed it. My company just happens to be on like the bleeding edge typically on cloud technologies, so they wanted to get on it really quickly. So
yeah, and that's what's crazy is like even when I was going through and teaching my Azure course, I think 3 or 4 times during the course of me just teaching it, they changed things. Even just the look and feel of it. They would change the icons and they would add a new service, and a new service went into beta, and then another service went into production. They're constantly changing.
Yeah.
So the learning curve just keeps getting steeper and steeper. So hurry up and get started.
Yeah, get started. It's I get an email from AWS every week talking about all this. They have a whole 100 item page of stuff they just changed, and I'm like, that's impossible to keep up with. But I know there's a lot of training websites that actually keep up with that, and they for me. A Cloud Guru, they have a thing called AWS This Week. You can watch it every week, and they talk about all the new stuff that comes out. and they showcase the most important things.
Maybe CBC Nuggets should do something like that. I think because we can't let A Cloud Guru have their time of day. We got some awesome trainers. I had another question here that I just could not find. Let's see. Cloud equals too much cost. Let's address that. So, do you think that the cloud's too expensive? Because your company, like all companies, had a serious data center footprint.
Yes.
But they've moved away from that, and now it's like, is it even there anymore?
I think that the cloud can cost more, but I also think that the cloud, it's an interesting thing to think about because there's a lot of customization with the cloud. You can use things called start and stop tags on servers. So you can start them up at 8 a.m. every day. You have them shut down on the weekends, shut down at night. Only have things up when you need them. Use Lambda functions
and that's terrifying
serverless.
to most system admins because you never shut stuff down. That's
Exactly,
bad.
exactly.
Because then the reboot might uncover all these issues that you weren't expecting.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's there's a lot of ways to cut costs, and it really just depends on how good you are at the cloud. And there's one big thing we're really ramping up on right now that AWS just released, which is their cost optimizer. And they actually released a AI component that you can enable on all your servers, and it'll use AI to measure all the usage and your utilization, and it'll tell you if you're over optimized or not, and then it'll recommend a cheaper instance.
Wow. Which, that's kind of crazy because it's like,
They still want you to save money.
yeah, because if they didn't do that, they would obviously make more money.
Exactly.
So I guess they're trying to attract you to their service.
But then you also got to think that it frees up space for them to use. So if you're using too much, they're cutting those margins.
Yeah, because at this point they're just like a utility service.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to use too much stuff because they have to pay their bills, right? Every time you spin up something, they get
Yeah, so
more
if
electricity.
you're not overusing their stuff, it's less maintenance for them, and it's just better cost cutting for them too overall.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. It's a crazy world, and I'm curious how the cost of having a footprint on-prem is going to change. And how it's going to change in the cloud. Are they going to raise their prices? Are they going to lower them? Is it going to become more economical either way? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see because a lot of people are still diehard. I got to have my footprint. I got to have my data center. I got to have my stuff and my stuff.
It's true, but they are pretty good about their security, all their PCI compliance, and all the type of stuff you need to really trust them with the security. Because even when I first started hearing about the cloud, I was like, no, that's not safe. You give them all your stuff.
Yeah.
Someone else's computer. But I think that when you really look into it and look into the security of it, you can tell that it's very safe. They worked very hard to make people trust them. And if you can get a lot of the security tryhards to trust you, you did something right.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, and I've heard a few things, a lot of government contracts are moving stuff to the cloud.
Yeah.
They've got government-specific clouds in both Azure and AWS. Super secure, super compliant. So if the government's doing it, I mean, come on. They're usually 20 years behind anyway.
They're usually the ones spying on you. So
yeah.
if they know someone's not spying on them.
So, I mean, at this point, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos just own the world. But we already knew that. It's just coming to light now. We had a question here. Thank you, Mauricio, for the super chat. Said, hey, Chuck, I switched from cooking to IT last year. Interesting. Your videos were the one that helped me on taking the step. How much time do you think it should take me to prep for the CCNA? So we're kind of jumping from cloud to CCNA. Cameron, what do you think?
I had a very skewed study time for it because mine kind of overlapped because I thought I had enough time to get the cert before it had renewed. This was before the most recent, was it the 300 series now?
Yeah, you're old now. You were getting it before the last rev.
Yeah, I was going for the 101, I think that was what I was going for.
I don't even remember what that was.
I think it was the 100 something. The 101 or 102, I think is what it was. And right before I was about to take them, they renewed. So I was like, I got to start all over again. So I went through some time where I just didn't even study, then started studying. But I've seen people knock it out 2 or 3 months per test.
Yeah.
And do really well.
But then keep in mind now that that's all different.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it is different thinking about it.
So, obviously before there was, I mean, it may not be obvious, right? There was the two-test method, IC&D1, IC&D2. They did away with that. CCNA is dead. Rest in peace. We loved you, but you're gone now.
Yep.
Now it's one test, CCNA. No routing and switching, none of that, just CCNA.
CCNA Enterprise. Right.
Yeah. No, it's just CCNA.
It's not Enterprise?
Not Enterprise, nothing. It's
Well,
just
that's for the CCNP.
yeah,
Enterprise.
CCNP. It's the routing and switching is now called Enterprise. But yeah, CCNA is just one flavor. That's all you get, and it's one test. And I did take it before the coronavirus closed all our testing centers. It was, and me and Jeremy talked about this on a live stream I guess it's been a month ago now. It was a difficult test. It wasn't as fun as the other ones. We kind of talked on that. It was. Jeremy said he had to fight to stay awake during the test. It was 102 questions.
102 questions.
Yes, no labs, no scenarios, just answer, all multiple choice. Oh, it was.
Wow.
I hate it if you compare it to like a cloud test. It sucked. I hated it. It sucked. 3 steps back it was. Okay, that's not your question though. The question is how long does it take to prepare? The CCNA definitely goes wider and not deeper now.
Because they've cut out all routing protocols but OSPF now?
Yeah. Before you had EIGRP,
And
BGP.
EIGRP was very heavily covered.
Yeah.
in my
So now
test.
you only see that in the CCNP. So yeah, now it's very wide. Doesn't go as deep. You still have to learn the basics very well. Subnetting. You have to learn the basics of routing and switching, and how packets go through a network. But as far as like anything else, it's very surface level. So learning about wireless, learning about security, and then learning about automation. CBT Nuggets, we produced the entire course, and myself, Jeremy, and Keith Barker. It's a great course. It's big. And we went through everything. I think you could probably knock out the CCNA, the new one, started from scratch. And from what I understand, you were a cook, so I would say probably 6 months of solid study to get your CCNA. And only because it's one test now. So like before, the 2-test method was great because it was half the price for each exam, and you weren't putting all your eggs in one basket. Now it's kind of like $300 for one exam, and if I'm not prepared, that's stressful. That's a lot of money. But anyways, I'd say 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months is pretty. You could definitely do it in 6 months.
And of course, it all depends on how much time you have, how much free time you have. Which hey, good news, we all have a lot of free time right now.
Yeah,
depending, right? I mean. We're quarantined, and everyone's binge watching Tiger King, so just don't do that. And
I mean, unless you've already finished it.
yeah, just don't watch it a second time.
Don't watch all the new episodes they're gonna keep releasing.
Did you watch the?
Yeah, I did. With Joel McHale.
Yeah, get some better lighting, Joe McHale. Goodness gracious, come
Oh.
on. Anyways, Mauricio, I hope that answered your question. We have a guest coming up. Is that a different Mauricio? No, same Mauricio. Thank you again, Mauricio, for the super chat. I have no working experience, but I know subnetting, and I have some knowledge of CLI, and have done the Cisco Networking Companion Guide and Book and Labs. Oh, well, that changes everything. I don't know how much you know of CLI, but then that might cut your study time in half. Because there's just the new CCNA is very, very trivia. So you have to know about the wireless controllers. You have to know how wireless works. You have to know about security. You have to know about automation. Just go through it. So I think 3 months if you have some good experience. Thank you for the super chat, Jeannie Houdini. Would you accept a junior cloud engineering offer knowing you don't have the experience skills yet, only a certification like AZ-103?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you can learn on the job, and that's the best training.
Yeah, like that's the thing, isn't it? Like I've never gotten a job where I felt qualified.
Mm-mm.
Like I didn't walk in and I'm like, okay, guys, learn from my knowledge. Just let me ooze knowledge. Like no, I walked in. I'm like, okay, put on a brave face.
Yeah.
I have to pretend like I know everything and I know nothing. I'll see what I have to study when I get home. Make my list.
And knowing it from this being my 3rd time doing it, from help desk to network to cloud.
Yep.
It's extremely humbling every single time you do it. But you're never gonna. I don't think you're ever gonna walk into a position and just know everything. You're gonna have to learn something.
Oh yeah, especially with something so wide and varied as the cloud, because I guarantee you there are no 2 shops that have the same cloud setup.
Nope.
And I think our guest is at the door. Why don't we go ahead and let him in? Surprise guest.
No, he's not here. There he is.
Oh no, there he is. We got my father, my dad, Cameron, you can stand up because you're young.
Yeah.
Come on in, Dad. Say hi.
Sit closer.
I want to make you out. Now, this is not a quarantine safe chat, but we're family. Stop. Don't give us a hard time.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's right.
So, Dad, for those of you who don't know who you are, you're our father. Tell us about yourself. What do you do?
I am the director of IT for Supreme Lending Infrastructure.
Nice name dropping right in there.
If you need your home refi, no. So yeah, he's the infrastructure manager for how many guys and gals?
About 10.
10 people who
Network and system.
Network and systems. So, I mean, you have to. That's a lot of managerial stuff. You have to be on top of VMware. You're a tried and true VMware guy.
That's right.
But I think it's interesting you came to this chat because we're talking about how Cameron jumps into the cloud, but you're also trying to jump into the cloud now too.
I am looking at going the AWS route.
Are you really?
No.
Oh.
That's funny because I knew he was going to be messing with me. They're both Azure against me.
Yeah, but now you're Azure as well, so.
Not yet.
Yeah, well, you will
Oh,
be.
you're thinking about going to the Azure
His
side,
his
huh?
company
my
has
company
Azure.
still uses it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, how's your Azure journey been going? Or what made you want to go learn cloud? Because I mean, you control the infrastructure at the company. It's a medium-sized company. I mean, how many people are at the company now? Like what?
2,500.
2,500. So
Yeah.
it's not like a crazy big company, but it's big enough to where you have branches. You got pretty good. You got 2 data centers. You've got all kinds of stuff. What made you decide to learn cloud?
I mean, just it's writing on the wall. I mean, everything's going to the cloud. So I want to get into AWS. I want to get into Linux. And I think that's the future.
You heard it here. This guy hires people. He manages a team of Windows admins, Windows system admins, network people, and he's studying the cloud. So, writing on the wall right there.
And COBOL.
Yeah. Did you guys hear about that? COBOL. If you don't know what that is, it's an extremely old programming language. Like it predates everything we use now. And what is it? New Jersey that was looking for people.
A lot of the banks and they're needing programmers. That
Yeah.
know COBOL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's kind of a neat thing to talk about now too, because we're talking about learning the new things, learning cloud.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have this old dinosaur programming language that's still being needed. Where do you think the role of people like us now, who know VMware, who know system admin stuff and network engineers, do you think we're going to be like that in 20 years? Like banks are like, we still have a Cisco router, and we need you to come in and fit and they're going to pay top dollar for people who have those skills. Do you think it's going to be like that?
I don't know. Things move so quick. I hope it's not phased out and becomes antiques, but
I think it's something that might be there, but I don't think it's something you should put your eggs in the basket. I don't think you should do that. I think that if someone has it, they can fall back on it, but I wouldn't just be sitting by the phone for hoping somebody calls you to come work on a router in 20 years.
Yeah, because at some point there's going to be no more to learn about that because they would have stopped producing stuff and producing the technology. You got to move on. And in IT, if you stop learning, you're dead. Unless you know COBOL. So I may be completely wrong about this.
Today was your lucky day.
I did take COBOL in college, by the way. So.
Oh, wow. Goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Barker, thank you for the super chat, sir. Great stream. Thank you both. Actually, my dad's here too, so thank him. Let's see. J Moose, I'm not going to say the rest of that name. Any thoughts for the Azure DBA certification? Not particularly. So he's asking about the Azure database certifications, like specifically those database things. So, I mean, Supreme is moving more towards Azure stuff right now, aren't they? Or
We're more DevOps right now. But, eventually we'll be more of a, hybrid setup. So, the future will pave our path.
Yeah, so like right now you guys have like a ton of SQL servers going on. You got SQL DBAs on staff.
Right.
Do you think you'll be moving your SQL servers to like Azure SQL in the cloud and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll be heading down that way. We'll start in the dev world, but then we'll eventually start moving production when it makes sense. It's all about the money as well.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be a hybrid setup for sure.
Well, because you already have all this money invested in your infrastructure, so I'm sure in like 10 years it'll be easy. Because like do we upgrade or do we move our stuff to the cloud?
Exactly.
It's an operational cost.
Right.
That's a good point you brought up though. Is like the cloud has mostly up until now mainly been developers thinking about moving their stuff to there because they can remove a lot of the hurdles they have to deal with. programmers always have to put in tickets for us to spin up new virtual machines for them to deploy their apps, and they need to know a test environment, a new prod environment. In the cloud, they can all do it themselves. DevOps,
There.
yeah, they just click, and it's there. And now that we're looking seriously moving our stuff to the cloud, we have to step in and do that kind of stuff.
And that is one thing that my company is enforcing, is that if you want to do anything, have any type of access to our cloud, even of our proof of concept environments, you have to be at least cloud practitioner certified. You can't touch anything until you have some type of cloud literacy.
I'm curious, do you give access to the cloud to any of your help desk people? Do they administer like basic stuff, or is that still all DevOps? Or would there even be a need for that because everything's so DevOps-y?
We tried to make things available to people who actually use it, but as far as the help desk, I think we're wanting to give them access to one thing, but it's not necessarily set in stone yet, and that's like it's AWS Workspaces, where it's kind of like a Amazon managed Citrix type of environment.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting thing too. I didn't think about that, like RDS, Citrix kind of stuff being put in the cloud as well.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So what is your company doing with Azure?
It's mainly from acquisitions. So we have companies that we have bought that are using Azure.
That makes sense.
All right. We didn't answer the question about the Azure DBA. If your company has a need for that, go for it. I think if you get database administration skills in that particular discipline, you're going to be golden. I mean, in the MCSA, on-prem stuff is going away. They've extended it, but as far as like what Microsoft wants you to learn, certification-wise, it's all cloud.
That's right.
They're killing off all those dinosaur certifications. They want you to know the new stuff. So yeah, go for it if you have a heart for databases. I don't. Let's see. Thank you, Socrates, for the super chat. I have no idea how much money that is. COP 4000. Now I'm for Linux Plus. Next up is AZ or Azure, AWS, or CCNA. So I guess he's asking, I'm going for Linux Plus, or I have Linux Plus. What should he go for next? Azure, AWS, or CCNA? And I guess that's a question for you, Cameron, because you had the CCNA coming into your AWS. Do you think it was essential, helpful, beneficial that you had that before you jumped into AWS?
I mean, it's like if you were to break up any of those certifications into like several blocks, like if you have databases, you have the systems administration part, the networking part. If you have any experience in any of those windows or sections already, it's already going to help you if you go for any type of certification. Because I'm going to tell you, if you go for networking on one of these associate level exams, the CCNA has covered way more deep than it possibly could.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Those were definitely very big helpers. Like I blew away the networking on the architect associate because the CCNA was way more deep. So if you already have some of a prerequisite knowledge, it can really help.
Well, that's what's funny because like I know. When we took our exams, the problem we probably had was we didn't have system admin skills. So things we were missing is like database questions.
Databases was killer.
And storage questions. I wasn't really tight on storage, whereas my dad here, he's not a network guy. So you would do great on the system admin stuff, but the networking stuff you'd have to brush up on.
Right.
So it really is like you have to become a master of all things, and whatever you bring to the table is just going to make you stronger in the cloud. What was your original question? Oh, so you would say yes, CCNA. Or I mean, what?
It's really what you want to do. Do you want to be a network guy? Go for a network. Do you want to? And it also depends what's out there. What's popular around where you're at? Are you at a company that already uses the cloud? If they are, go for whatever they're using because that's probably going to be your quickest ticket to the cloud.
Now let me ask you this question, because now that you're a cloud guy now, and you're having to learn Linux and Python, do you think it would be better time spent learning Linux and Python instead of CCNA as a prerequisite for the cloud?
Yeah, Linux and Python would be more beneficial than learning the CCNA.
Whoa, okay. So you've already got Linux down, it sounds like. Maybe you brush up on some Python and then jump straight into Azure or AWS. Really, I keep saying this. The skill set you learn in the cloud for AWS or Azure is going to be pretty complementary to whatever you're doing. You're going to use Bash in both of them. The only difference being is you can use PowerShell in Azure. I don't think you can use PowerShell too much in. You can use PowerShell in AWS.
You can use it now, yeah.
Well, then it doesn't matter. It's all the same.
But then also that being that Linux and Python are both very vendor agnostic, whereas the CCNA is going to be very Cisco heavy. You could learn the networking concepts that you want to get from the CCNA from the Network Plus. So it just if you want to learn Cisco stuff for fun, sure, go for it. But if you don't really need it, don't.
Yeah, that's where I guess I'm becoming frustrated and maybe just a bit jaded with Cisco certification, even like Microsoft specific certification, apart from Azure. I love Azure. Is that Cisco's becoming very, very heavy on on their platforms, like their Firepower,
Meraki,
their
DNA.
Meraki, like it's all just like platforms that are very, very vendor lock in stuff. They don't. I mean, I'm sure they play nice with other vendors, but like it's very like vendor lock in. Whereas the cloud is just the best solution. Let's just find the best solution. We play with all vendors. You want to deploy Cisco in the cloud? We can do that. Juniper, Palo Alto, whatever. We everyone can come play, and that's the future. That's what I'm seeing. So it's getting pretty hot in my office, and we've gone for almost an hour, and I know I'm starting to sweat here. Any closing thoughts, Cameron? I guess Cameron, give them your closing thought on how being a cloud tech is, and where do you see yourself going from now?
I would say that at the moment, cloud is still growing, and it's still going to keep growing. I don't see it going away I don't think it's ever going to go away. It has to be something very weird and new.
Something like the coronavirus would have to make it go away or something.
Something
is weird. We can't even use that term anymore. Like something weird would have to happen. Anything can happen, man.
Right. But I think at the moment, I don't see myself jumping any type of track because in the cloud, you do everything. It's not like if you're doing networking and say, man, I really like the systems administration stuff. I want to do that. If you're in the cloud, you're doing everything. I can already say that within the past, I've been officially in the weeds for about 3 weeks. And I can say I've almost touched every single thing that I had on my test.
Man.
All of it is there. You're going to mess with all of it.
You can't say that for CCNA. Because like when I got my CCNA and CCNP, or I didn't get my CCNP, but all the stuff I studied, I didn't like hardly use any of that. Except for like some protocols.
Well, that's a big hurdle I'm having to overcome is that when I got my CCNA and got my first job, I knew all these different things, knew all the keywords, and I was like, okay, when do I do this? To go, oh, we don't use that. When do I use this? To go, oh, we don't use that. When do I use that? We don't use that. And that has to also go with the vendor agnostic things. You go on the cloud to go, when do I get to use this? To go, oh, we use it right here. When I use this, we use it right here. So it's weird having to backtrack and realize that I am going to basically use everything at some point. So you have to retain all that knowledge. You don't come in thinking that you can learn one thing very heavily and then not learn everything else just because that one thing is hard. Because that's how I came into the cloud stuff, and I was like, I'm never going to use a database. I'm never going to touch that. And then I was like, that's a bad way to think about it. I'm probably going to touch some databases, so I should probably just keep studying. So it will all come up at some point, so study it all.
Which is kind of a terrifying thought, but it's really not too bad. Take bites, and you'll be fine. And I got one last question for you. I guess you could say your company has I guess you can say it now, a traditional infrastructure. Sure. How important is it for you when you're hiring somebody? Would you be more likely to hire them if they had cloud stuff on their resume? If they had like an Azure certification, AWS, or they had cloud experience, would you prefer them over someone who just had mainly traditional experience?
Absolutely. I mean, the main reason, that's the future, that's where we're going. Even though we're more of a hybrid scenario right now, it's nice to have those skill sets on staff that you're starting to move that way.
Yeah, so the reason I asked that question is I'm thinking like, yeah, there are, I think the majority of people probably aren't in the cloud yet. I think the majority of people are traditional, and we're all moving that way. Right. But even still, most people who are hiring for people are going to be hiring those traditional roles, but they're looking for people to move the next step. Right. They want people to help them bridge that gap because everybody at least knows a little bit about the cloud and knows that we're going to have to eventually get there. Did you see any last minute questions, or are we good?
Just looking.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to end this pretty soon because it's been a while. And we'll have to do another one of these because this is fun. We'll have to have the whole family by. And yeah, that's about it, guys. Well, again, thanks for stopping by. Thanks, Dad and Cameron, for joining and offering your expertise. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you have any other questions, just feel free to drop in my Discord or leave a comment on this video. I'll try to get these guys to answer if there are questions I can't answer. And if you want to check out Azure, AWS, or anything, I've got links below to get you started. Start training now, today. That's about it. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.